It's a beautiful, look at this beautiful room. Showing faces, thanks everybody. I just want to try to keep us in time tonight. It's about a little after 6:30, so I wanted to do our agenda for the evening. I'm glad everybody was here enjoying dinner, meeting some neighbors, making new friends. Hopefully no enemies yet, no, just kidding. I hope everyone had a chance to sign in, get a lot of name tags. To Stephen and Jane, who were serving up our dinner from Delight Restaurant tonight. And there are some printed agendas up the front. If you didn't get one, you can also hand. We get a nice lineup of updates today, and some important folks in the crowd. So, just to start things off, I don't think we have some people online. I just like to do a little, welcome to the 7 NPA meeting. Like I said, the agenda is right up there, in our ground rules. I just like to go through those, so we're all kind of into the kind of space that, we feel confident sharing it. So just four little rules we like to live by to one another, treat others respectfully, share your opinion politely, and common sense. So, Charlie from CCTV. This meeting will be recorded and available afterward. Leave early, or you want to show your neighbor something that they missed. All the info. And yeah, so I think let's jump right in. And so our first item on the agenda is to do a little everybody. There are some microphones on the table. Even though there's a green light, there's still clicking that you have to do. You see what my thumb is, like a little button to turn it on. And just try to hold it in front of your face like this. I can start. My name is Sarah or Sarah. I use she, they pronouns, and I live in Ward. I'm also part of the steering committee, and hand it off to the next person if you're welcome, if you guys are ready to introduce yourself. So just pronouns if you want to share that, and what word you're coming from. So if I can start down here, you guys remember how to turn it on.
Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin and I'm in Ward 7.
I'm Brian from Ward 7.
Hi, I'm Diana from Ward 7. Ashley is Ward 7.
Rex, Ethan, from Ward 7.
There's some parents. She works.
Okay.
Fred, Ward 7.
Linda, Ward 4.
I'm Steve 7. I'm also on the steering committee.
I'm Jared.
Ali Gang, Ward 7.
Jennifer.
Ward 7.
Brent, Ward.
Okay, Ethan, Ward 7.
She, her, Ward 7. Nancy Strong, Ward 4. Susan, Ward 4.
Evan, Ward 7. I'm your Ward 7 City Councilor.
Joanne, Ward 4, and I'm also on the steering committee.
Ward 4. Hi, my name is Donald. I'm in Ward 7 and I'm on the steering committee. Oh, this now makes me really happy. Six.
I'm Annie Lawson. I use she, her pronouns. I am from Ward 4. It just brought more chairs out of the closets, so I don't know where we left off. Where should I bring this?
It's ready.
I'm Sandra from Ward 4.
Mel, Ward. Abby, she, her pronouns, Ward 7.
Him, Ward 4. Hard act to follow. My name is Hank Prensky and I'm in Ward 4. Brian, Ward 4.
Lofty Branch, she, her, Ward 4.
Robert Diagnostic, Steve, and I'm also your Ward 7 school commissioner.
Amy Stewart, she, her pronouns, Ward 7.
Smart. And so, Ward 7. Oh, you're good.
Ward 7, she, her.
Ward 4.
Lynn, Ward 4.
Hey, Ward 7. What? Mike, Ward 7.
There's she, her, Ward 4, and I'm the city councilor from Ward 4. Judith Waller, Ward 7.
Carol Odie, Ward 4, and I'm the one of the two state representatives from District 18 and Chittenden District 18, and Hooper is sick tonight, so he isn't here. But I'm going to be presenting what he hasn't been here to present.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Debbie Clemens, she, her pronouns. I lived in Ward 4.
Barbara Benton, she, her, and Ward 4.
Gary DeCarlos, he, him, Ward 4.
My name's Jordan. I'm from Ward 7.
Hi, I'm Abby Duke from Ward 7, and I'm the state rep for Chittenden 17, which is more or less the southern part, south of Hanford, more or less. Couple people in the back wanted to introduce themselves. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dave Marr, Ward 4.
I'm Megan tonight. I'm subbing for Mary Dingo tonight. I work at Fletcher Free Library in Wisconsin.
It's okay.
Al Lucci, he, him, Ward 7.
Sal Millichamp, Ward 7, the Ardell.
Bernie Carter, he, them, Ward 7.
Great, I think that's everybody. Thanks, everybody. And now everybody's held the microphone and know how it feels. One, we missed one. Go ahead. You have your- Yep. Okay. Thank you for the enthusiasm. That's. You can turn it off if you want. We know how to do that. And the microphones are still out, because our next agenda item is open forum. So this is a chance to share events that are coming up, updates, something exciting in the neighborhood or going on in Burlington. So I just wanted to present that topic. And I can start. I'm embarking on becoming an electrician, and there's a new Skechers store that's opening on Shelburne Road. Hooray, that's news for the neighborhood.
Are you gonna still help us out there, or are you gonna be full?
Yeah, that's my plan is to balance it all, so I would love to, I signed up for my class and I chose Monday, Thursday, because there was a Wednesday option, and I said, occupied. So. I know. Hopefully we can juggle it all. But yeah. That's my update. If anybody else has an update or event, Joanne, grab you a microphone, that's closer to you. Now, the microphone also for everybody is, I know some people have loud booming voices and real presence, but it's for the online folks.
This isn't really an announcement, I just have a request. Anybody that this is their first NPA meeting, could you raise your hand?
Thanks, Joanne. Oh, somebody in the back there. There we go.
Hi, this is Sal, Millichamp. I live in the Cambrian Way area. We had a fabulous block party. I wanted to thank everybody who came. Thank you, Sarah Carpenter. Thank you, Mark Barlow. Thank you, Abby Du. It was wonderful to have everybody there. And Steve and Jane worked so hard with all the food, of course. We had games, it was old school, it was so much fun. So I just want to let you know we'll have another one next year. I hope you all come.
I just wanted to put a shout out to Front Porch Forum, and I understand that we have a new forum for getting information out to the community. And I just want to say I'm grateful that we have those, because I think it's really helped us communicate with our neighbors, you know, here and throughout Burlington. So I wish them both, you know, a lot of luck staying afloat and keeping the harmony in these.
It's front door or something.
Always sure you know. And I love the sensibility. It's like you look as busy. Change. And so if you have any accent issues, please contact me. And the other thing I'd like to say is that this would be great if this meeting was closed captioned, so that people who are hard of hearing might be able to see what's being said.
Thanks for that, Sharon. And somebody back there, I'll just hand you this microphone.
Hey, Susan Ogden, I'm in Ward 4, and I have 2 announcements. I want to plug the New North End Book Group, which meets the 3rd Thursday of every month. We tend to read current fiction. It's open to everybody. It's just a very democratic, open to everyone, friendly book group. So please check us out. I usually post on Front Porch Forum and also in Facebook. Secondly, I started an AI study group, and we had one meeting at the Fletcher Library in the Hannaford Shopping Center, and we'll be having another one on Friday at 11:30. And there's about 8 of us, open again to everybody who wants to understand AI and how it's going to really transform our society. So those 2 things.
Ray from Ward 7. I don't know if this is the appropriate place for it, but I noticed on some of our social media in our neighborhood has had a lot of intrusions or try to break in our vehicles and our homes. And I don't know if anything was involved in that.
I can't hear you unless you speak directly.
Great. Was any result from that? But I'd like to propose if our leadership is in here, that maybe the Colchester Police Department, who are sitting across the bridge a lot of time, just idling there. If there's a 911 call, or maybe they could drive by and just show some kind of exposure that we have law enforcement around here. If you're walking through our neighborhood, you might get caught. And I don't know if this is an appropriate place for it, but I thought I'd throw that out here to the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. May I say just one thing? A lot. Oh, sorry.
And then I have one more now.
We seen on Facebook, about those, a lot of those attempted break-ins are not reported. And so it's really, it's often late, you don't discover it until the morning, but you need to report it.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah. I also didn't see anybody here from the, New North End Food Pantry, and I know this coming Sunday, the 28th, they actually are accepting clothing, it's their clothing drive the last Sunday of the month, so, I believe 10 to noon, you can donate clothing, so I just wanted to put that into this room since there's so many faces.
It'll be a clothing and food drive.
Clothing and food drive, yeah, they just only accept clothing on the last Sunday, so I just wanted to put that out there. We are approaching our time up. I saw one new face. If you don't mind, Evan, I'm gonna. Yeah.
I just wanted to push it up.
I just wanted to say that, the food pantry, at Oddfellows, they need volunteers. They put out another call out for this weekend specifically. I don't think you have to sign up, you can just drop in. There's like a 7:45 to 10 o'clock shift, and then one maybe from 10 to noon. So it's easy, it's fun.
Thank you so much. One quick one from Evan.
I saw the time's up sign, so I'll be quick. I wanted to thank everyone who's made announcements. These are all great. There's a group of folks from Mission Murals who's doing a community paint days this weekend on Saturday and Sunday from 10 to 4. And they're gonna paint the whole consolidated communications area there, 266 Main Street, which has a lot of graffiti and is our main entry point. So it's a great community opportunity. And I also really wanted to just mention, I wanted to thank Teresa Vazina, who's not here, may have come and presented here back in spring. We're very lucky that the mayor recruited Teresa to help us open the Overdose Prevention Center. And she's been doing amazing work, but she's also trying to coordinate all the different little groups of volunteers who have been out cleaning up syringe litter, many of whom have been going out at 7:30 in the morning, sometimes on Sundays. So if you're interested, I don't know if there's any kids left at the Oddfellows Lodge that I have made and dropped off, but if they run out, I'll make more. And please contact me or Teresa Vazina if you're interested in joining a community cleanup effort. The committee that I'm on, which is Community Development Neighborhood Revitalization, is currently working through a lot of the syringe litter stuff. So thanks for all the volunteers who have been pulling that together.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention again, we've got about 10 more of these annual reports from the city of Burlington up on the table. And it describes each of the departments in the city. And it also has in the back the general debt. So general, so it basically says how much we owe in bonds in the city, and it's kind of shocking when some people see that. And it also lists all the salaries of everyone that works for the city and the school department. So it's usually a pretty popular little piece of information. Thank you.
Thanks, Riley. Thanks, everybody. Sorry we couldn't get to every single announcement, but that's what Front Porch Forum is for. Talk to your neighbors, you love it. And our next agenda item is from the Fletcher Free Library. I know Mary's not here, so we're gonna invite you up. Megan, come on over, and tell us all about library card sign up month and anything else we're gonna hear.
Hello, no.
Steve.
Hello. There we go. Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Butterfield. I am here on behalf of Mary Dako, who's the Fletcher Free Library Director. She's away this evening. I am the children's librarian, so I'm very nervous talking to you. I'm very good with where we're going at this talk. I have a whole lot of things to tell you about very quickly. September is Library Card Sign Up Month. Raise your hand if you have a Fletcher Free Library card. Yes. So if you do not yet have a library card, this is the time to do it. You can go to the New North End branch, which is right here in the Hannaford Shopping Center, or you can come downtown to the main library. And we are joining the American Library Association and libraries across the country to encourage people to sign up for a library card. Didn't seem to know censorship there. What happened? To access free books, self-censorship, materials and resources, and to reduce waste by resource sharing. So one thing you may or may not know about is that we are not just books. We have a very extensive collection of materials, including a library of things, which includes things like a pasta maker. There are instruments there. There are things to craft snow creations with. I'm forgetting everything at this moment. Oh no, they're here. Yarn spinners, food dehydrators, yarn games, garden tools. Garden tools is really what started it all. So all of those things are available to you just with your Fletcher Free Library card. You also access a whole bunch of our digital resources. That includes Weiss Financial Services, Libby, free streaming on Canopy, the New York Times, Ancestry, Candid, and Transparent Language. All of those are available to you for free. This belongs to you. And whether you have a library card or not, we do want you to get one, you are always welcome at all of our programs. Our programs are open to everybody. I'm just going to mention a few highlights that are coming up. Something I'm super excited about is Construction Fest. That is happening next Saturday, 10/4. It's the only possible day this could happen, 10/4. And we are going to be throwing a big party to celebrate the construction in downtown Burlington. Because you know who's not annoyed about it? Kids. Little kids are into it, they want to see. So we are welcoming everyone downtown to the City Hall block of Church Street. We are partnering with Dad Guild, we're partnering with the Marketplace. We're also sponsored by Boho Baby, DR Power Equipment, and like SD Ireland's gonna be there, spinning things. We're gonna name vehicles, we get to name a mixer. So this is all gonna be really amazing. Sorry, I'm very excited about that. Right after that event, you can come to the main library where we're going to have a press event at 12:15, and that you will get to have free big truck tire donuts. Have you had a donut from Cafe Hot? Yeah. Okay, biscuit and donut, but it's big truck themed. I don't know what that means yet, but it's gonna be delicious. So you can come to the library after that to celebrate a $50,000 grant that the library was just awarded from T-Mobile. So that money will go to help continue the preservation work that has been ongoing at the library this summer. We are co-hosting a book series called Civic Reads with Champlain College and UVM, sparking dialogue on democracy and Burlington's future. Public discussions and book groups including Abundance, which meets on October 16th, and Autocracy Inc., November 4th. There's information about those on our website. We're also very excited about the Green Mountain Book Festival, which is coming back to the library on October 18th. And we are going to have a feature event at the library that night featuring science fiction author John Scalzi in conversation with Andrew Liptak. So look for that and come to that too. Our nonfiction comics festival comes November 14th through 15th. If you haven't been, this festival is actually a really big deal. We have people coming from across the country to come to our nonfiction comics festival here in Burlington. That is November 14th through 15th. The keynote will be by Ben Passmore. We're also starting again our tech support drop-in hours at the New North End branch. That's on Tuesdays from 12:30 to 2:30. If you need help with your tablet, with your phone, with your computer, with your email, come in there and Claude will help you. And then we are also running a promotion called the Story Passport. Has anyone been to the Story Walk out at Letty Park?
Yes.
Okay, if you haven't been yet, please go out. It's a bit of a hidden gem. We're working on some signage. But we have a story walk in the woods right off the bike path at Letty. There is also, sorry, do you know what a story walk is? Some of you, how much time do I have? Beautiful, thank you. I can do a much shorter, tell you what a story walk is. Story walk is when you take a picture book apart and you set out the pages along a path or along a window or along a construction fence downtown at the library, so that people can read it as they go. The one at Letty is our permanent installation, and construction has allowed us to have a couple additional canvases. So there is currently a story experience on the fence in front of the library on College Street. We also have a story experience in the windows of Main Street businesses. I believe that is at Mr. Mike's and Bar Renee, I think. And then in addition to that, there's another story in the window at the library. The reason I tell you about all of these is we have a promotion for families where if they visit all of these different stories, they can get free ice cream. So in places you're 1 minute, great. So places you're going anyway, please encourage all of your family members, especially if they include small kids, but it's all ages. Come visit our stories, get free ice cream. And then finally, our building preservation project is underway. Work is progressing smoothly with expected completion in December, and disruptions to public service have been minimal. And you can follow our Facebook page or visit our website for weekly updates.
Thank
you so much.
Are you taking questions at all? Lance, you have time for a question? Do you have a microphone or do you need one?
I don't
Is it that one? No, people online can't hear you.
Are you having a book sale this weekend?
Great question. Yes, we are.
I thought so.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yeah, at the downtown library this weekend, we are having a book sale. Come on down.
So my other thing is, I collected over 120 children's books. And I want to thank Front Porch Forum. We were able to give every child at our block party a book. I have leftovers. Do you take donations?
We do. Let's talk.
Okay. I'm Jane.
Jane, nice to meet you.
One more question.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand the library is part of the 28 library collection, where when you use your library card here, or when you have a library card, I think you have to sign up for it. You can use 20 to 27 other libraries around the state, including the South Burlington Library.
Yes, I think you're speaking of the home card system. And so the home card system is a consortium of libraries across Vermont that share catalogs. And this is something Fletcher Free, oops. Thank you for mentioning it, because Fletcher Free has joined it less than a year ago. So it's brand new that Fletcher Free library patrons can do this. Stop by the library to just make sure your regular card's in good standing. And then you can take it to Williston or to Winooski or to South Burlington or that I can say once this microphone will let me. Thank you for mentioning that.
Wow, so much information. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you standing in for Mary today. You did an amazing job. The adults are super excited. Let's see. Okay, amazing. it was not you, it's the microphone. So I'm gonna invite the representatives that we have here tonight, Carol Ode and Abby Duke. Also speaking for Bob Hooper, you can pretend he's part of the crew tonight. And you all are here to give us some updates about housing and CHIP. I'm gonna let you do the talking.
Excellent.
And I'll give you the microphones that maybe are gonna be a little more consistent. So,
Or is this not on?
yeah.
Here's one. Oh, there's a here's one.
This was it on?
Yeah.
This one, okay. So, we're gonna try not to let this become too dry as we talk through these things. But please, jump in, we'll have plenty of time, I think for quite a lot of time, we're gonna have a lot of time for questions. So we'll maybe try to keep, we'll open up for questions in a little bit. I'm gonna start out by talking about sort of big picture, right? And then work down some stuff, and then Carol's gonna take over for some more details as well, and things that I might miss. So who thinks we have a housing problem? All right, we got some, I think we might have consensus here. So housing is,
Are you gonna share one? Is that okay?
we'll just share. Okay, so when we think about the problems, the challenges we have with housing, there's a few different, I want to kind of talk about it in a few different ways. One is we have a problem with access to housing, right? We all know that. We have all the way in. All the way. Sorry, I'm not good at microphones. How's it works now? Okay, it's like an ice cream cone. Okay. So we all know we have problems with access to housing. We have too many people in our community who do not have a place to live. Now we have problems with access to housing. The data is clear that communities where housing is very expensive have higher rates of homelessness. At its core, homelessness is a housing problem. We don't have enough housing. We don't have the right kind of housing. So number one, we have a problem with access to housing. Number two, affordability we all know this. Affordability is a problem. Vermont had from 2022 to 2023, our housing prices increased by almost 13%, which is the highest in the country. So prices are too high, which leads to access problems. We don't have enough now. Okay, we don't have enough housing. Really, we don't have enough of the right kind of housing. We have 650,000 people in the state of Vermont, and if you add up all of the housing we have in the entire state, we've got about 1 million bedrooms. So there's a mismatch in the size of housing. There's a mismatch about where it is. There's second homes versus first homes. So that is also a challenge. So I want to kind of level set about housing related to sort of a long-term economic development plan and long-term health of our state. Does anybody know about the Vermont Futures Project? A few people. I have one copy of the report, and I'm happy to share it or give it away. It's also all on their website. It's a really impressive overall plan. They looked at Vermont from a data perspective and said, if we want to have a thriving community into the future, what do we need? Because right now we have a stagnant population. Our population is just barely growing. However, it is demographically, it is shifting significantly older. And so, for example, we have about 80,000 students in our K through 12 or pre-K through 12 education system in Vermont. And 40 years ago, we had more like 85 or 120,000. So 120,000. So, right. So what is the best way to destroy an education system? Slowly drain it of students. We have far fewer students than we did. So we need people. We need people of working age. So the Kelly Chu, who led this project and this analysis, came back and said by 2035, we would like to have 802,000 residents in Vermont. So from basically 650 to 802. His analysis says that would bring us the workers that we need help change our demographics. Okay, so in order to do that, we also need more housing in certain places. That analysis is basically just to kind of catch up. We need about 36,000 homes in the next 6 years. So, that's, or actually it's not 6 years, 10 years. But really, and so that is, sort of to give you that overall level set. Fun fact, I learned this from his work. If you took all the small towns in Vermont that have lost population and you brought them back to their historic population, so Bellows Falls, Rockingham, towns at Springfield, towns that have fewer residents now than they did, at their historic high, you would add 70,000 residents to the state of Vermont just by bringing back historic populations to those towns. Okay, so what I have learned, now this is a big problem, right? Big systemic problem all across the state. It's not just Burlington, it's from all across the state. And it's taken us decades to get here. So if we're gonna get out of it, we need to make some full change. We need to do really significant investments, significant changes in the way we do things so that we can get out of this and provide enough homes, the right kind of homes for everybody, so we can take care of all of our citizens. So now I'm going to talk about it in the policy realm, right? What have we been doing in the legislature over the last few years? And what are we continuing to do, and what are we going to be fighting for this next year? And I'm going to talk about it in 3 buckets: money, infrastructure, and cumbersome regulations. All right? Because these are big systemic problems. There's so much, and there are so many individual programs we can point to, and I'm going to try to talk about what I think are the most impactful, and also are, kind of news you can use, things that maybe you can use in your lives as well. So first, we're going to talk about money. Now, there's a number of different programs, and there's a variety of money that is, I'm not going to talk about like, 5 million for this, 10 million for that. I'm going to talk about some general programs. One is, this has not been created, but it is in the process of, they're trying to figure out how to create it, which is a land bank. A land bank would allow the state to own land, blighted land, underutilized land, abandoned properties, take that land, put in infrastructure, rehab it, and set it up for development. So a land bank is something that has been really successful in other states, and we are pushing forward to build out a land bank in Vermont. There's a program called VHIP, which is a great sort of Vermont scale program that some of you may have even, has anybody here taken advantage of VHIP? It's called the Vermont Housing Investment Program. We always just call it VHIP, but I'm pretty sure that's what it stands for. Sounds right, Sarah? Yeah. Vermont Housing Investment Program. First created in 2020, and it was kind of reworked a bit and refunded in 2024. It provides low interest or even completely forgivable loans of up to $50,000 for people to rehab homes in order to bring rentals online or to build ADUs. So you want to put an ADU in your backyard, you may be able to get up to $50,000 that would end up being a grant in order to put an ADU in your backyard. It has funded 1,000 units across the state in the past 5 years. Yeah, great program. That's the kind of thinking, right? That is systemic thinking, and also things that empower families and individuals to, it can be, I talked to a young man who bought a duplex, he's 22 years old. He was like the model, like what we want. He was like graduated from high school. He went into an apprenticeship program, became an electrician. He was 22 years old. He was a master electrician. He bought a duplex. He got a VHIP grant to renovate because it was not really, that it needed a ton of work. Got a VHIP grant, renovated the duplex. He lives in half, rents out the other half. The kid is 22 and set up really for. Anyway, so that's VHIP, really exciting program. We're going to be trying to give it more money. Now, obviously, the budget's going to be a real problem this year, but that's another conversation.
Microphone, please.
Sure, into the microphone. Okay, VHIP. Another thing that we're working on is how do we increase the So, okay, we know how expensive it is to build housing, right? The cost of materials is sky high, labor costs are sky high, there's a shortage of labor. We don't have enough workers, the workforce is an issue. So, you know, now one might say, what about modular homes? What about manufactured homes? So then, VHFA did a report last year, which is super interesting, looking at how do we build more homes using modular construction. Modular construction is when you build it in a factory, basically panels, maybe even build the whole house, and then you transport it and you assemble it on site. In theory, sounds much less expensive, right? However, looking at this systemically, you know, why is it that we don't do more of that? Well, one of them is that we have different building codes and different zoning regulations all across the state. We have 252 different towns. Another problem is we have one modular home construction company in the state. And mostly they do custom construction. It's actually not cheaper. Huntington Homes is what they're called. And I think they're very involved in this conversation, trying to figure out how can we, you know, help make it cheaper to build homes. So there's a program called Homes for All, which was created 2 years ago, I think. Anyone ever heard of Homes for All? So Homes for All is looking at this from a systemic perspective, saying, okay, first stage was they put out a toolkit for small developers, which could be just somebody who owns some land, right? Let's say you want to build your ADU in your backyard. You can get some money through VHEP. You can use the Homes for All toolkit, which will walk you through how to go about it. It's also looking at creating pre-approved building plans that could be then used anywhere in the state. And then you could start talking about bulk purchasing. The only way modular home gets cheaper is if you go out and you say, we're going to buy 3,000 and flop them all over the state. So that Homes for All. So all these things are kind of happening concurrently, right? So it's a all hands on deck. It's a throw everything against the wall kind of a situation. So, okay. So that's modular homes. Manufactured homes is something that, you know, manufactured homes have come a long way, and there's some very high quality manufactured homes. And so we're trying to look at the regulation or the statutes surrounding either on rented land or on owned land, and how we can help spur that. Okay. So I've only gotten through money, and there's more to that, but I'm just going to move on to infrastructure. Okay, so infrastructure, anybody remember our bond last year, right, for the water? Infrastructure is really expensive, and we have aging, we have communities that, there's kind of two situations with infrastructure. There's a lot of it is aging, but then a lot of the state has very little infrastructure. 200 communities don't have wastewater treatment facilities. So we have a real challenge with our infrastructure. So last year, this is something that both Carol and I spent a lot of time on, which is legislation creating something called CHIP, which is the Community Housing Investment Program, something like that, which is a project-based tax increment financing. Carol's going to talk more about the details in a second, but it's a project-based TIF program that allows, if you're a municipality and a developer and you want to build a housing development, actually a great example, because we're involved in this legislation and are planning to be one of the first applications, is the big development that is going to be right next to Hula. Everybody know about that? It's the South End Secord. Thank you, Secord project. It's being driven by, I mean, it's on land that's owned by, some of it's owned by Ride Your Bike, which is Hula, basically. Some of it's owned by the city. So when there's a significant infrastructure that has to happen, including like separating the wastewater from the stormwater. And so they will be able to put in an application to use future tax revenue to pay for infrastructure upgrades. It's similar to, it's the same concept of the TIF districts that we have two downtown, but it's project by project. So a tiny town, you could be building a duplex and potentially use some of this to do water connections, things like that. So that's a tool with the idea is to use it to help build the infrastructure needed to allow private developers or nonprofit developers to build housing. there's a couple other programs involved that are related that we've worked on related to money for brownfields, which is huge issue. Also money and money to create something called the Vermont Infrastructure Sustainability Fund, which is basically money for infrastructure. All right, so infrastructure and CHIP, and I'm really proud of that. In fact, I'm on the board that oversees TIF and CHIP, and am on the subcommittee that is writing the guidelines. This has been, and so we are working on those at a meeting tomorrow, and we hope to have the guidelines finalized in a month, public in November, like ready for everybody to start preparing applications and start accepting applications in January. So it's been a very fast, which is great. Government tends to not move very fast, but with this program, it's been moving really fast. Okay, and finally, I'm going to talk about cumbersome regulations, and then hand it over to Carol. And the big thing that we did with that now, so I'm going to back up a little bit. We're in a position where we have 50 years, 60 years worth of permitting, land use regulation, zoning. Much of it is really good, but there's a lot of it, and there's a lot of layers, and some of it doesn't serve us well anymore. And so an example is Act 250. Act 250 was a landmark legislation and was very much needed when it was implemented. 50 years later, it was time for a significant update. So last year, 2 years ago, we updated in something called Act 181. We updated Act 250, which set it up to have some temporary areas around towns, basically, that were exempt from Act 250, and asked the regional planning commissions to create maps for the long term for having those areas exempt. It sets up some other things. Now, all those maps are really getting published right now, literally right now. So if you haven't seen it, you can see it on the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. You can see, our maps, but the other planning commissions, you can see those maps too. Now, I think it's fair to say what we're finding is that there's some problems with that whole process, and so I am very hopeful that as we go into session this year, we're going to be able to take that experience and say what needs to be fixed in this law to help with smart growth, right? We don't want a couple of really important things in that law. One is there's a road rule. So basically it says your driveway, you can't build a house and have a private driveway longer than half a mile, 600 feet. We don't remember. Basically says you can't have a really long driveway across, to your, because it's a way that historically there's been a lot of that development in rural Vermont. Fragments the forests, right? I think for good reason that is in the law. And I think we just need to do a little more work to make it, to make some of the transportation corridors where we want development where there's transportation, and especially public transportation, where there's already infrastructure. And so, so I think we have work to do this year to make that law better, but it's a great start. All right, so I'm gonna stop talking for a second and let Carol talk. Hopefully why don't we braise? I know, why don't we should we break for a couple questions? How much time do we have? 7:22.
12 minutes.
Oh, before questions even start. Oh.
All right, so I'll keep talking about Act 181 of 2024, which was the biennium before this last session, because that's where you ended. And so we're going to encourage new housing by decreasing permitting where there's already very strong permitting requirements. So we're not just going to let things happen willy-nilly. There has to be already good rules in place for how to develop. And then there's a new land use map that will identify areas in Vermont, in each Vermont city and town, where Act 250 requirements will be in part or fully exempted. And those maps will make it easier to build homes and businesses in some areas
and will prioritize green space, protect agriculture, protect forests, in others. Because not only do we want a good quality of life, but we also have a tourism economy that is the driver in this state of our economy, and we've got to make sure we protect our natural resources. And you can type in Act 181 of 2024 into the internet and find out how you can get involved in Burlington's future land use map, which, as Abby said, Burlington and the Chittenden County Regional Planning Committee are working together on. That's all I'll say about that. So much to say. So things to know about CHIP, which is the Community Housing and Infrastructure Program, where we're going to use tax increment financing to get the infrastructure built so that housing can be built, mostly housing. So we were using CHIP in Burlington before, we were using TIF in Burlington before CHIP. That's tax increment financing. And we use that, for instance, in the waterfront. And so this is the original taxable value, because I don't have a big graph to use. So the owner will always pay taxes on the original taxable value. For example, on a vacant lot, to the city and to the educational fund for schools. So the owner decides, let's say, to build housing and needs infrastructure. They need roads, sewer, water, sidewalks, lighting, and the builder and the city under CHIP will work together and agree that the builder will take on debt for 20 years, and the cash to pay down that debt, to pay for that infrastructure, will come yearly from the increase in revenue that's generated from the increased value of the project. Okay, so 75 to 85% of the new tax revenue will go to pay that debt, and the rest will go to the education fund, or to the municipal tax revenue. At the end of the 20 years, both the original taxable value and all the taxes on the increased value of the entire property flows into the education fund and into the city or town. That gives you greater tax revenue, greater grand list, more housing, and economic development. And the way it looks here is, this is for the city revenue. The original taxable value always is getting paid to the city. The red is 15% of the increase in value, like on the new homes. And the green is the part that is used to repay the loan. And it looks almost the same for the schools, except the schools retain this, the education fund retains more of the increase in tax revenue. So things to know. There's a 20-year payback, as I said. The project uses the percentages of the new taxable value to pay back the loan. The Vermont Economic Progress Council, which you'll hear people say VEPSI, can approve up to $200 million for each of the next 10 years. And that's $2 billion worth of this funding through 2035. And then it ends. That is to get housing kick-started here. I already said the borrowed money can be used for infrastructure, and it can also be used for project debt like planning. And the focus is housing. If you're building something like what you see down on North Avenue, 60% of the square footage has to be housing. Okay, so you can have some stores at the bottom and so forth. The original TIF had in Vermont had a but-for test. But for this TIF, this project wouldn't be built. We are not going to require a but-for test anymore as long as the project is for housing. And it's more, if you borrow this money for housing, you get to use more of it to pay down the debt for the infrastructure if there's affordable housing or rental affordable housing as part of the project. I have details about how the rental works. I'll tell you, just in case, because there are usually questions about it. Where the annual cost of rent is not greater than 30% of the gross annual income of a household at 150% of the higher of several median income calculations, then you could qualify to borrow more and use more of that increment to pay back your infrastructure costs. And under the old TIF, 85% of increment was used to pay for infrastructure on the city side, and the new CHIP, it could be more than 85% able to use to pay for the infrastructure. In the old TIF, 70% of the increase in revenue generated by the TIF paid for the infrastructure. Now 75 to 85% will be able to use for the project. And in the old TIF, there are only a limited number of places in the entire state that were allowed to have TIFs. I thought it was terrible, but anyway, and would always argue against that. But now this CHIP can be used across Vermont. And the amount that's been retained for projects since 1999 has been just under $76 million. And the projected amount that will be used until 2044, because of the payback line, is projected to be 158.4 million. It may be more, it may be less. That's just about housing.
While it's, sorry. Hello?
Use this one.
While I can keep that straight and get this question out. So in the CHIP, the one thing I've always wondered about it with the TIF. So the money's, so somebody's going to borrow the money, whether it's the developer or the city, to do infrastructure, and that's part of the cost of the project. And so when it makes sense, you're going to finance basically it through, you're going to borrow money to do that and pay back that money with taxes that are coming in the future. So but there's a cost to building to that new unit or that new development, more firefighters, more, street repairs, there's just a cost to adding more units. And it seems like a big chunk of the property tax where that would normally that's what would pay for those new services. You won't have that money because that's going to pay down that debt for 20 years. So where's the money going to come from to pay for the services that all the development? If you put 1,000 houses in Burlington overnight,
That's a good question.
Cost would go up.
Good question. First, you still have the original taxable value you're collecting on, and you still have about 15% of the new taxable value. And then the other thing is impact fees. The city collects impact fees. Actually, Burlington collects less than a lot of other towns and cities, even in Chittenden County. I just learned when I went to a Let's Build Homes conference a couple of days ago. So, and Sarah, you have something to say because you're on the city council and you know about impact fees.
Okay, this is a deep question, and I'm going to make first a comment just because it's all about cost. Many of you know I was involved in developing Heidelberg housing 40 years ago. That was in the $50,000 to $60,000 a unit range. Heidelberg, so when Heidelberg, 50 to 60,000. All these new apartments are coming in around 500,000 in 40 years. So just sort of think about that. And do the math, and that's where the affordability problem is. In terms of question, part of what we need is also more people. The sewer bond, which we needed, whether we have 30,000 or 50,000 people, we have capacity. It would be great to have more users of the sewer system. So, and that won't cost us any more money because we need the sewer system whether we have more people. And so there's a lot of things that more people don't necessarily cost you more money. The school system could handle more students.
And so, we're under 1,000 students. When I went a million years ago, my BHS had, my graduating class was like 1,600, or not the high school was like 1,600 kids. Now it's 900. So I think, over concern. There are things we know we need more public safety, things that will affect fire. And you can get impact fees if you can prove that the units moving in create more impact. And a lot of times they don't necessarily create more impact. I mean, I'm not saying there's more traffic, there are more things, but sometimes, like the schools, they would welcome more students. We want more sewer users. Electric company can handle it. So I don't think we should be afraid of that.
Yeah, I was going to say pretty much the same thing, which is there's not necessarily a linear relationship between the services needed. Like if you have 10 new residents, it doesn't, you don't have that same, you don't necessarily have an incremental increase in those services. But the municipalities will need to make those calculations for themselves too, like both in terms of the impact fees, but also with this CHIP program, there's no reason, like the municipality has to agree to it, so the municipality, it has to believe that this is in their best interest. And if they don't, then they won't enter into the agreement. That's number one. And the other thing to your point is the fact that these units are coming in at $500,000 is a tremendous problem. And so that is, I think, where we need to be looking at rehabbing what we have, right? So VHIP is an example of rehabbing what we have. And that is, we've got a lot of aging housing in this state. I mean, I think we have some of the oldest housing infrastructure. Yeah, Sarah's nodding her head. Some of the oldest housing stock in the nation. So why don't we try to fix up what we have? That's number one. Number two is rehabilitate what we have. For example, if you have, actually Burlington has former schools that are now housing. So turning state buildings into housing, turning former hotels into housing, being creative and thinking a little outside the box about how, and there's, Champlain Housing Trust has done a tremendous job of turning some former hotels into single bed or efficiency. Yeah, right. So, and then the other thing is I think we need to lean hard, and I'm going to be advocating hard for doing more and really having a systemic approach to modular and manufactured housing. Stick-built housing, which I've learned that's the lingo. Like if you're going to go just build a house, like most people have had their houses were built, is extremely inefficient. You're basically, it can take 18 months to build a home. Well, if you can build it in a modular setting where they're building a lot of homes all at the same time, and then they come and they assemble it in a week, right? So, and you can do that year round if you're building something inside. So there's, I think, tremendous opportunities. Now it's going to take, it's going to take aligning some regulations, and it's going to take some financing, some creative financing to make it work. But I think there's a lot of potential in if we lean really hard into manufactured homes and modular homes to help us, especially with the sort of starter homes, meaning like we want to build a house that maybe you could sell for $300,000, maybe it costs $250,000 to build. We're not going to do that in a stick-built environment. Okay. A couple questions in the corner and then one over here.
Is this on? Here. I don't know how to approach this question exactly, but I'm seeing the underside, the business end of all this. Today, I looked at some reports from the wastewater treatment facility treatment department of Vermont, and in the last 24 hours, roughly about 108,819 gallons of CSO, this combined stormwater and treated sewage
were released by permit into the Otter Creek, East Creek water system, which means Lake Champlain. And then all this is permitted. So how do we take care of our housing in a way that does not continue to increase our impact on Lake Champlain? How do we take care of that? That's why I think our bond here in Burlington was so important, to make sure that we take care of our responsibility. Other towns may not be doing that. But I mean, I looked at this East Creek, 20,800 gallons, East Creek, 44,100 gallons these are different stations. Otter Creek, 30,700 gallons. East Creek again, another CSO, 88,200 gallons, all adds up to almost a third of an Olympic swimming pool. So let's be aware of this side of our population and our housing crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. That is super important. I was just a couple of days ago at something that a presentation for Let's Build Homes, and protecting our wetlands in the built environment is extremely important. And we had someone stand up and say, we have to make the maps. Remember the maps we were talking about? We have to make those maps more quickly. We can't take into account wetlands in the built environment. And definitely, I pushed back and said, no. Wetlands, for example, are flood resiliency, and they are important in wildlife corridors and all the things we need to keep a healthy environment. And if we destroy them, we end up costing more in environmental damage, pollution damage, and then we end up having to build them at taxpayer expense. I mean, taxpayers will pay one way or the other, so they might as well do it the right way in the first place. So some of the infrastructure that the chip will be to protect the environment and to pay for good water.
Because I mean, like the Pine Street Barge Canal,
yeah.
Section that's undeveloped downtown on Pine Street should be left that way to heal.
Yeah.
And not built on, for instance. I think I hope Burlington will have the foresight to protect that piece of land.
Well, that is excellent point, and that's where you can go to the meetings for the LUC. Is it LUC? Or anyway, for the new maps where you're going to be able to say what you think should be protected going forward under Act 181.
Thanks for that. We have one more question before I let you guys scurry off.
Sorry, I'm just wondering whether when you consider 30% of somebody's income, you all can so consider giving architects a bonus for universal design, which would make more apartments accessible for everybody and make renovation accessible. It's been proven nationally that universal design helps everybody. And if we could tie that into some kind of credit tips program, we might get more architects to buy into it. And that way, not everybody who's elderly needs to leave their home, or which also puts pressure on the housing market.
That's a great, yeah.
You guys get that?
To get housing tax credits, a big source of subsidy for affordable housing, you have to do universal design. We could tie that to CHIP. It really isn't out of the realm. I mean, there are other funding sources. Vermont Housing Conservation Board requires universal design, so we ought to look at that.
I'm meeting with Merle Weinberger, you know, our former mayor. He is involved with this, and I'm meeting with him next week to talk about the environmental concerns you brought up, and I will bring that one up too. There are a list of things that they're moving forward with, and they just, you know, there's a list, and now they're going to keep moving forward. So getting this input, super. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you both. So I have a notebook and I'm taking emails. I'm going to start a more consistent email newsletter by early, well, it's almost October, by the middle of October. So if you want to be on my email list, give it to me. I will send updates ahead of the session and then during the session, and also ways to get involved. And that way you'll have my email address to make it really easy to reach out when you have ideas. Like the universal design idea is a great idea. And I'll bring that to VEPSI as well at our next meeting.
And on her sheet, indicate that you want to hear from me too. And Bob wanted to do this 181. He had a whole thing ready for that, but he really wasn't feeling well. So sorry about that. And he sends his apologies and wishes everyone well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Amazing information. Hopefully we'll have Bob back at some point. And thank you guys. And our last item on the agenda is to nominate and vote for new steering committee members. So I don't know if there's anyone else out there that wants to nominate anybody, but we do have one nomination for Amy Branch. I was like, there's another part of your last name. Yes, and we vote by ward. And Amy do you want to say a little bit about why you want to join the steering committee? Because we're excited to have you, and anybody else can think about nominating anybody else or self-nominating if you're interested in joining the steering committee, which hosts this meeting. Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
I didn't know I had to make a speech, but if you have no other reason to vote for me because of my cool sweatshirt.
I like that.
I live in Ward 4. My kids have gone through the whole school system here in Burlington. I love Burlington. I love the new North End. There's a lot of really concerning things happening in our country and in our state, and the most important thing we have is community. So I really want to be a part of building more community here. So.
Thanks, Amy. Before we vote or anything, I wanted to offer space for anybody else who maybe wanted to nominate, or if Jane, you wanted to say something about the steering committee. Yeah, I'll take your second. You know what? Then no. I was like, anybody from Ward 4 second? We got a second and we got a third. We love it. Well, okay, we have Amy to vote for. However, does anybody else want to leave a moment of room for any other nominations? Going once, going twice. Amazing. Think about it. We'll be here next. We'll be here again. But for now, anybody, so only if you're in Ward 4. Does everybody know if they're in Ward 4 or 7? Anybody confused, questioning? No. Okay. So only if you're in Ward 4, all in favor of Amy joining the steering committee. I counted 12. Anybody opposed? Great. Welcome to the steering committee. Yay. We usually meet the first Wednesday of the month as the steering committee. They are generally open meetings if people are interested or they want to dip their toe in. And then typically we're here the fourth Wednesday of the month. So our next goal meeting will be Wednesday, October 22nd. Hopefully in this room, but TBD. Yeah. Was that okay? Hopefully. And I just wanted to introduce Barbara, who's been right over here handling the technical side a little bit. Barbara is the new NPA coordinator for the city. So we're super excited to have you. Thanks for being here. And for printing our agendas, which we had out on the table. Feel free to take them home. Any of the material from the front, those annual reports, if there's any left. And I think otherwise, I'll just offer a motion to adjourn the meeting. Anybody second? All right. It's been seconded. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next time.